Hi there and welcome along to another workout for you to row along to. Today's row is going to be a tempo row, and what that means is it's going to be hard. It's not going to be max, it's not going to be easy, it's going to be somewhere in between. Basically rowing at an intensity where as you get through the intervals you're starting to think, I don't know how much more I can take of this, but then you get a little rest because like I say, it's an interval workout. We're going to be rowing 6 times 5-minute intervals with 90 seconds rest in between, and we'll be doing it at 24 strokes a minute. And that kind of 7 out of 10 intensity to start, but by the end of the workout, it's probably going to creep up to around about 9 out of 10. So it's going to be tough. You're going to feel it's going to be like, oh, but you should be able to get through it. If you're going so kind of intense and fast that you can't make it through the interval, back off a couple of seconds. If you find it's really easy to get through the interval, speed up a couple of seconds for the next one, all right? Good guide there. So we're going to do a 4-minute warm-up before we get into our main workout today, and that of course means having to set up our machines first. On an RowAlong, that means setting your resistance to wherever you would normally set it, and on a Concept 2, if you're using the RowAlong app, that means setting your drag factor to where you would normally have it. In both cases, what I say you should have it at is that you get a nice kind of connection to the machine. You can feel the weight of the machine, but you don't have to tug and heave against it in order to get the thing moving. Next up, let's go to our foot stretchers, and what you're looking for is to set a height where you're able to come into the front of the machine with your shins in a vertical position comfortably. If you're set too high in the foot plates, you can get a bit stuck and not quite get there. If you're set too low, it can be quite easy to get there and your backside escapes from underneath you because you've overcompressed. You lose power, it can get a bit uncomfortable, okay? A good ballpark here is that the strap covers the balls of your feet, which is often the bottom lace of your shoe. Set it there first, adjust as necessary, okay? That's the best guidance there. So, 4-minute warm-up, 20 strokes a minute, and we're going to start off at a very nice low intensity just to get our bodies moving. So here we go then, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. So just connect your feet to your hands. So that means push your feet into the machine. At the same time, you feel the handle take up the weight of the machine. Still haven't worked out the best way to describe that, but it's that point when you bite into the machine. So if you're on the Concept 2, it's when the chain connects to the cog, or on an RowAlong, it's when the belt makes connection to the power inside it, okay? Hopefully you get what I mean. But the point is, you want to push your feet at exactly the same time. And as long as you have straight arms and a forwards tilt as you do so, the power from your legs goes up through your body, into your arms, into your hands, and into the machine. And so how hard you push with your legs controls how fast you row. So we're a minute into the warm-up, so push a little bit harder now. And what you're trying to find is an intensity where you start to get out of breath. Not too much. I don't want you panting like a dog, but your breathing rate increases, your heart rate starts to increase, but you can still talk, okay? If you had someone next to you, you'd be able to hold a conversation with them. And it's like if you've ever climbed up a whole bunch of flights of stairs in an office building or a hotel or something, you know you get out of breath and it feels a little bit like exercise. That's what you're looking for. So it doesn't feel hard, you don't have to stop, but you know that there's exercise going on. But 2 more strokes time, we'll reduce that because we're going to take 1 foot out the straps and put it on the ground. So unstrap, foot on the ground, continue rowing. Make sure to still push with the leg that you have strapped in. Just because you've only got one leg in doesn't mean you can back off the intensity. You'll probably be rowing slower, don't worry about that, but still push with that leg. Last one here, and let's swap feet. Continue rowing with the other one. And the point here is that with only one leg strapped in, it's easier to roll forwards to that shin vertical position, and it's also easier to get that hip rock and forwards tilt into the front of the machine because you don't have your hips or 2 hips kind of tying you up Let's take one more. Both feet back in. Tighten them up if you want to. Legs straight. And roll with your back and arms. So the legs nice and straight, but swing your back, then pull in your arms, then release your arms and rock forwards. And the order of this is vital, that you go back, arms, arms, back. So take the power up with your back first, but then start your recovery with your arms. Hope that makes sense. Let's roll into the front with a forwards tilt, arms straight, and just push out with your legs. Keep your arms straight here, because what I want you to work on is that timing of the foot press and your hands connecting to the machine, but also holding your forwards tilt and straight arms for as long as possible before your back swings, and your arms should not pull at all in this drill. Last stroke here. And actually, those drills at the end, if you just do them even as a warm-up, if you don't have 4 minutes, just do them as a warm-up to get used to the sequencing of the stroke, and it will improve your rowing. Anyway, less chatting from me, have a quick drink, keep on moving up and down the rail, and I will describe one more time what it is we're doing today. Okay then, so the hoodie's off and I'm ready for action. Today's workout then is going to be 6 5-minute intervals with 90 seconds rest in between. You're going to row them at 24 strokes a minute, and your intensity is going to start off around about 7 out of 10, but don't be surprised if over the course of today's workout that increases and your perceived effort ends up kind of closer to 9 out of 10. The point here though is that you do not work to a point where you have to stop. You're working at an intensity where you probably think you want to stop, but you don't have to. If you get to a point where you've completely blown up and you have to stop, you've gone out a little bit too fast, so back off in the next interval to kind of get back into that, oh, this is awful intensity, but not actually having to stop. Awful's a terrible word to say. Amazing, I should have said. Anyway, if you're ready for this, I hope you are. Let's get ready to go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're off. So 24 strokes a minute. If you want the cheat code for it, is 1 stroke every 2.5 seconds. And the easiest way to do that is make sure that you hit every like 10 and then 5. So then 20, 25, 30, 35. And usually the one in between, once you find your rhythm, takes care of itself. And then again, eventually, you can stop looking at the counter because your body's just found the flow. And that's one of the reasons I bang on about technique a lot, is that really does help with your rhythm and flow. So, which I will talk about, don't worry. I'm just going to give a short while just to make sure that we're back up nice and warm, working through this row. So you will be probably round about 10, 12 seconds faster rowing at 24 strokes a minute than you were during the warm-up. I know I am. I was warming up at 1:58 pace, and now I'm 1:48 pace. So I'm pretty much right where I want to be. The intensity is one where I can see my heart rate increase. I know my breathing rate's increasing. I can feel that kind of, that sensation, the difference between like walking and running, where walking you could just do all the time. It doesn't really feel like anything. But when you run and you suddenly feel the activation of your muscles that you need to kind of put effort in, let's say. Well, that should be kind of the difference between the warm-up, which would just have felt like a walk, and now you do have to push with the legs in order to get the pace up, but also to have a drive speed fast enough to get your stroke rate up to 24 strokes a minute.
Because remember, the whole thing about stroke rate is that you have a fast drive speed, and then your recovery should be slower than the drive, especially at this kind of stroke rate. Once you get up to like 28, 30 plus, it starts to become more like a 1-to-1 ratio, but here it should still be that your drive speed should be round about twice as fast as your recovery. And you can help that slower recovery by kind of splitting it into two halves. The handle and the body rock. So handle away, body rocks forwards. That's part one of the recovery. Part two of the recovery is when you bend your knees to roll forwards. Now, the trick is to make that a fluid transition for the recovery. It shouldn't be a 1-2. The arms away leads in to the forwards rock, and then once your hands are past your knees and your body's momentum is shifting forwards, you bend your knees and you should fluidly, smoothly roll to the front. It's not a jerk. It isn't actually a 1-2 kind of snap. Anyway, 2 strokes to go. And our first rest. Now I'm going to continue with the light rowing option and the rest, just to keep my muscles moving and the clock moving. But I'm also going to row with one hand and have a drink, just to keep it moving. So I'll try and at least tell you how I'm getting on through the row in terms of perceived intensity. Doesn't matter if you feel the same, but hopefully it will at least help see the progress of the row, because I definitely felt like 7 out of 10. That was a nice opening 5 minutes. Like I say, I was definitely putting effort into it, but it was nowhere near getting to a point where I thought I'd have to stop. So don't worry, the first couple of intervals will be like that, where you don't think you need to stop, but the whole point of this workout is you will get there. Okay, 10 seconds to go now until the next interval. I'm going to take 2 more strokes and then it'll be start for interval 2. Are you ready? Here we go then. Straight back in to where we were last time. And with any luck, you've instantly hit your rhythm and pace here, straight up to 24 strokes a minute, and the same pace that you were rowing at in the first interval. It's like your body should kind of remember the last state. It's like opening up an internet browser and it reloading the same tabs. That's what this kind of a interval workout is like, where you're just rowing at the same rate and pace throughout. And so the benefits of doing this are kind of huge. You'll teach your body about consistency. You'll teach your brain what it's capable of. You'll get all of the fitness benefits too. And as it's a little bit of a power workout because we're up at 24 strokes a minute. You'll get good muscle benefits. And then once we get to the point where it starts to get hard and you really need to concentrate to get to the end, that's where your mental fortitude, let's say that, mental fortitude gets kind of honed as well. And you learn that actually the points when your brain starts to get a little bit weary isn't the same as when your body does. It's almost like your brain says to you, well, I'm not sure about this. Do we really want to hold this intensity for 5 minutes? And you just have to say, shut up, brain. In fact, I'm going to call it now. That's going to be today's closing hashtag. Shut up, brain. Not to be confused with misspelling it and having it shut up, Brian. Okay, so I'm now at a point where intensity still feels around about 7 out of 10. By now, I'm not really on autopilot anymore. I do need to think about this push, strong push from the legs. Not because I can't hold the pace, but just because a little bit of fatigue is setting in, and therefore when you're on autopilot, it's easy to ease off if you're not actually concentrating on what you're doing. This is one of the reasons why I don't tend to row watching like Netflix or TV or anything like that, because I know that if I'm just rowing on autopilot while I'm watching Mission Impossible or something, that I'm not really going to be focusing on the pace I'm rowing at. And then what's even more disastrous is when you lose the focus on technique too. Because it's really easy to get sloppy in terms of posture and timing when fatigue sets in. So having just the metric screen in front of me to keep me honest, I much prefer. I might listen to a podcast or something. Last stroke here. Whew. Then we get into our next rest period. I'm hoping you're seeing on screen the thing coming up saying get ready to rest and stuff, because that's twice in a row now that we've got there and I've kind of suddenly called out, stop. I do have to remember these do also go out as podcasts, so poor podcast folk. Well, but again, you should have something in front of you telling you the amount of time you've been rowing for, so hopefully, even if I don't say it's almost time for a rest, you know it's coming up. Right, I'm going to go back to single arm rowing, very light rowing while I have a drink. Oh, very thirsty today. It's a little bit warmer today, a bit more like spring in Glasgow. Still like 9 degrees, it's not actually warm, but compared to what it's been recently, since the beginning of this series, it's positively tropical. Okay, 10 seconds to go. 3 strokes for me. 1 more stroke for me. Are you ready? Let's go into interval 3. Nice, powerful push to get it going. And again, my experience here is that through the rest there, that kind of that frayed edge of fatigue that was starting to develop is now gone after the 90 seconds rest. So be interested to see how this one develops. Last one was definitely more of a cardio element that started to go, oh hello, we're working. I wonder if that'll happen again, or whether my quads or my arms start to feel the work this time. Because, you know, I do talk a lot about the rowing stroke is mostly about this leg push, that connection, pushing, getting the power into the machine through that forwards tilt and straight arms, but you do still need to pull. You don't just stop with your arms straight out in front of you, and then how you pull can make a difference as to what muscles you're using and what starts to wear out. So if you can keep your arms straight at the front, only pull at the back, but finish with the handle around about sternum height, just under your nipples, or heart rate monitor height, bra strap height, and with wrists flat as you pull through, then what that does is it engages and uses your lats, your big back muscles when you're rowing. And because they are bigger, they're not only more powerful, they're able to take the strain of all of these strokes. Because what, 24 strokes a minute times 5, so that's 120 strokes per interval times 6, so that's 7, I'm doing maths again, 720 for the whole workout. And at this kind of hard intensity where you are bracing against the handle with more force than you do at low rate, and therefore continuing that brace by pulling in powerfully at the back. So 720 of them, you want to use your big, strong, fit muscles. You don't want to finish with a handle high and wrists up, because that goes to your delts, your shoulder muscles, and into your forearms, which are much weaker than your lats. And in fact, the only thing really that's showing any sign of muscle fatigue is my forearms after those 2 demonstration strokes of what not to do. So a good interval for me, 2 more strokes. 1 more stroke and we'll rest. Whew. Intensity overall, I'd say we're kind of 8, maybe if I'm allowed decimal points, maybe like 7.8. So it's gone up. Breathing rate's up, heart rate's up. And I'm now kind of thankful of the rest periods. Could easily have continued that last interval, but it's not the point of this workout to push yourself to a point where you have to stop. It's all about holding on when your body tells you it wants to stop and saying no. Right, so where are we? 35-ish seconds to go until the next one. Make sure and have a quick drink if you need to. Also, if you need to reseat your backside on the seat, it's a good idea. Just sitting here the whole time with your sit bones squashing the same part of your glutes, that's often the cause of discomfort. So if you just reseat your seat, for want of a better phrase, that can really help. Okay, 2 more strokes for me. 1 more. And here we go into interval 4. So we're going downhill. We're halfway there. John Bon Jovi's been summoned to sing Living on a Prayer at us. And we've got 15 minutes left of workout with the 90-second rests added too. So that's what, 18 minutes in total until we're done. Which actually, when you say that, you go, oh, we've got quite a long time to go, haven't we? But then when you break it down into saying, well, it's only 5 minutes, I'm gonna rest, that's much more manageable. And it really is. There's a reason I repeat it. It's because it's so important to take big goals or big workouts and break them down into smaller chunks that you are much happier thinking about. 5 minutes at this intensity, I know I've got that. But if I think 15 minutes, that kind of worry fog starts to set in. Can I make that? But I know I can make 3 5-minute intervals. Maybe I'm just a very simple sausage. Right, I've kind of lost count. So 18, 19 and a half. So is that 2 minutes we're coming up to on this interval? I hope so. Which means 24 and a half on my timer is when we stop for the next one. It would be easier if I had the intervals in front of me, must be said, but there are just too many sync issues going on there for that to happen. So just quickly going back to your backside. What I said about the sit bones and your glutes. As much as I was saying sitting in the same position is the cause of some discomfort, it might be easy to take away from that you're not meant to do it, that you are sitting up on your sit bones with a good posture, rocking forwards and backwards is the key to power, lastability, and ironically, given why I'm talking about it, comfort. Because as long as you shift position very slightly, that dull discomfort will go. Whereas if you are sitting back with a slumped posture, what happens is your sit bones grind and mash over your entire glutes, kind of like a rolling pin over dough. And that is where the real discomfort comes from. Pivoting forwards and backwards just causes pressure on one point, which you can adjust. A poor posture crushes all of the, kind of like a straight line of muscle in your glutes, and it's harder to get around that. Whoa. Okay, 10 seconds. 3 more strokes. Whoa. One more. Whew. That was firmly 8 out of 10 for me that time. I mean, if you are actually listening to me and you don't just have me on mute with music playing, you can tell by the change in my voice pattern that I'm having to breathe harder, take in more oxygen, get out this carbon dioxide. So it still is mostly cardio that this is seeming to be kind of taking its toll on, which is a good sign. Everybody's different. Listen, so I'm saying this is me. So if you're finding it in the muscles and not cardio, that's fine. It just means that, I mean, I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but I am very fit. So it's kind of, well, actually, that should be the other way around, shouldn't it? It should be, oh, you get what, you know what I'm on about. Yes, if I was fit, I shouldn't be out of breath, should I? I've just punched a hole in my own thesis. Okay, 3 more strokes to go. I'm gonna do a little baby one here just to catch up. 2, 1 more. And here we go. Interval number 5. Oh. Whew. I'm back into it. Oh, yeah. So all I'm saying is that you may be at this point and you've got all of the lung capacity in the world to go through this, but maybe your legs are feeling it, or maybe your legs are totally fresh and you are huffing and puffing. And what that really tells you is what you are probably best to kind of emphasize in your training. If it's your fitness that's gone, then more of the long, slow rows are probably a good idea. But if it's your power, then maybe more like this and the top end sprinty stuff. I mean, the difference for me is that I'm talking the whole way through this, so you'll have to forgive me for being a little more out of breath than I would normally be. But if I just did this without talking, it'd be a rather dull video. And I guess my USP is I just talk away to you the whole time. And you know what? it's as much as I'm saying long, slow rows help cardio training, so does talking while you're rowing. Because apart from moments like that where I just had to catch my breath, I'm kind of holding my breath for like half a stroke, where you may be taking in another gulp of air. I'm talking and expelling air. And that is something that it's worth training, is your breathing, not just like trying to improve lung capacity, but also developing a good ratio, a good rhythm while you are going through the stroke. So if you can try and find a complementary breathing pattern, whether that's breathing out as you drive and then in at the back, or reversing that, or one breath per stroke, or two. So whatever works for you, as long as it gives you the air in and the air out that you need, and you don't find you're needing to fight for a breath, especially on a row like this. Fair enough, the Tabata workout, you do eventually, you're just searching for another gulp of air, but a row like this, you should really find a complementary rhythm to your stroke. Because I was racing, high rocks at the weekend, and because I hadn't run for a while due to a calf strain, my breathing when running was all over the place. It wasn't until I sat down on the rowing machine that I was able to find my rhythm again, settle down for the rest of the race to come. Okay, 3 more. One more stroke. All right then, last rest, and then we'll have one more interval, and then I'll do what I've been doing for the more recent of these tougher rows, and that we'll do some light rowing at the end too while I say goodbye, because as much as I tell you to, or I impress upon you, let's say, to go and seek out the cool down video I've got up here, I bet you don't. I'm sure some of you probably do, but I bet you most of you don't. And maybe you skip a cool down, so even just that light rowing while I say goodbye is better than just stopping and wandering off for a shower. Or even if you're gonna row and then do weights, you still want to cool down at the end of the row just to ease up your muscles a little bit. So, right. So I'm kind of right about 8.5 intensity. I finished that one from a perceived effort point of view. And then in 3 strokes time, I'll take it a little baby one. So 2 more, we'll get into our last interval. 1 more, all right? Here we go then, 5 more minutes to go, and then we're all done. And just in case at this stage that fatigue has set in and possibly concentration is now wandering, And maybe you're kind of, if your intensity is higher than mine, then maybe you're kind of head down a little bit and just trying to make it to the end. And so shifting your focus away from thinking this is tough to something else will hopefully help you to get through the next kind of 4 and a bit minutes. And so I'm going to talk technique for a while. Did I slow down to 20 strokes a minute then? Apologies if I did. Suddenly I looked at the counter and it was not quite hitting. Anyway, so we're going to focus from the finish. So as you finish and the handle comes into your chest, let the handle ease away from your body again at the same pace you brought it in at. So you don't hold the handle against your chest. It basically springs, bounces away. But at the same time, you're not jerking it away from you. So smoothly but quickly, the handle comes away, and then that triggers your forwards rock. And what I want you to do is really think about rising up as though you've got a balloon tied to your head, and you rise up as your hands come away and you rock forwards over your hips. Because the point here is I want you to hinge, tilt forwards. I don't want you to round your upper or lower back to just think about a lean forwards. I want a good posture from you. And so once the handle is past your knees, you should already be in that forwards tilt, and then only then do you bend your knees to roll to the front. Roll until shins vertical, and your arms and back shouldn't move at all once you bend your knees. That good posture at the front, and then push your feet into the machine. Push the machine away from you, but keep your arms straight and try to hold your forwards tilt for as long as possible, so that the start of the stroke feels like leg power flowing through your body. Then when legs are half done, swing your back to really accelerate the power, and then finally pull the handle in to sternum height and squeeze shoulder blades together. And let's do it one more time. Whoa. I meant one more stroke, not let's do another interval. That would be mean, wouldn't it? So I'm gonna have a quick drink. Oh, and then Just some light rowing, just for a few seconds. And then after this one, I'm gonna tighten up my technique. But I'm really down at like 4 out of 10 intensity here. Really light, kind of like how we started the warm-up, where it's just about connecting feet to hands, but it's not really about putting power in. So my warm-up pace was, well, I say 158. I'm down at 218 right now, so really eased off the pace, just enough for my body to move, but also at an intensity where I can see my heart rate is falling rather than holding its current value or worse, increasing. So that's the point intensity wise here, is just to move, just to help your muscles pump that blood around your body, or yeah, you get what I mean. Move your muscles, get the blood pumping, flush out any of the carbon dioxide that's still hanging around in your muscles, and that'll help with like muscle soreness the next day, things. If you're prone to it, sometimes if you've been away for 2 or 3 days, you get that DOMS thing. I know I certainly had it after my High Rocks race. Oof. less about me. Right, one more stroke for me. Right, you can continue to do your light rowing while I say a proper goodbye. But there we go. That was hopefully, that was the sweet spot tempo row for you, where it felt tough, the intensity went up. I probably hit round about 9, maybe 8.89 for perceived effort by the end. I was definitely, like I said, you could probably tell from my speech pattern that the way I was talking and whatever, I was having to catch my breath a lot. So it's great for just developing that kind of, that tempo, the ability to hold pace for a certain amount of time, but you're not actually kind of going max and really kind of draining your energy tank. So yeah. Sorry, that pause there. I'm sure I said what the hashtag was, and yeah, so the hashtag, if you're going to post that you did this onto any of your socials, is just going to be shut up brain. Remember I said that before? I almost didn't, but yeah, that was it. So yeah, so if you are going to post on any of your things, why not just use the hashtag shut up brain? And yeah, and people go, oh yeah, because lots of people say that about anything, not just rowing, to be honest. Apart from poor Brian, who sometimes he gets accused of stuff due to spelling errors. so right, there we go. That was, what was that, row 29, I think, of the Zero to Hero series. If it wasn't, apologies. I mean, it's me, it's my brain. Yeah, so we're kind of in the closing stages. If it is 2029, then we're in the closing stages. There's only another 7 more to go, and then that should hopefully get you ready so that you can then propel on. And if you want to do like a 5K time trial or a 2K time trial or whatever, you should have at least given yourself, from the point, remember this is a Zero to Hero, so we've gone from sitting on a couch doing nothing to then be able to do a row like that, and then for something else. So always remember about where you've been and where you've got to. So it's good to look ahead, but it's also good to kind of go, wow, look what's happened. So let your past help you rather than kind of focusing on the bad things. Maybe you had a bad workout one time, forget about it. Just remember the good ones. Or at least learn from the one that didn't go well. Anyway, I'm ranting, so I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you once again for joining me for this one. I will see you either in the Zero to Hero series or in any of the other videos that I have up here. Until then, please take care of yourselves. So row well, be well, bye-bye.